This multiplication and division video is part of a playlist that's appropriate for basic math review and for the GED math portion of the test. Please like or subscribe to this video channel so that it get the word out for more people to see. Don't forget that in the description, the entire playlist is linked there, and also each video, including this one, has problems for you to work to practice your skills and complete worked out solutions so you can see all the steps to get them done. Now, to start talking about multiplication, let's talk about the different ways they can ask you to multiply. So back when you first got introduced to multiplication, they may have used that little x. So 2 times 3, and that would be 6. Then they may have moved on to a little dot, and that would be also 2 times 3. They use the dot instead of the x to say multiply. Sometimes they use parentheses, and that also means to multiply. They could say find the product of 2 and 3, and that would ask you to multiply those together. They could also say, all right, let's talk about 2x, where x is equal to 3. Now, 2x has the number 2, which is a coefficient, and x, which is a variable. And if I tell you x is really 3, then this is understood to be 2 times 3. X is 3. Putting a variable right next to a number as a multiplier, there is an implied multiplication in here. So a number and a variable can be implied multiplication. Two numbers stacked next to each other are not implied multiplication. That's just the number 23. Now, there's all the various forms that we're going to deal with today. Now, in order to function with us and with higher, more powerful numbers, larger numbers, you need to go back and review your multiplication tables. Sometimes they call them multiplication facts. In general, you usually had to memorize this section of the table where you had to do, 2 times 4, 2 times 5, 2 times 6, all the way up to your 10s. You can go to the 11s and the 12s. That'd be great if you were familiar with those numbers, but you really do need to have memorized all the way through this block through the 10s. You may have trouble remembering specific numbers or combinations. Students sometimes will look at me and go, well, math comes easy for you. And I'm like, way back when I first learned my multiplication tables, I had trouble trying to figure out what 7 times 8 is. And 7 times 8 turns out to be 56. But I can't memorize that for some reason. So 7 times 8, I would go like this. 7 times 8, that's the one I don't know, so it must be 56. And then if somebody said, well, what's 8 times 7? I go, wait, 8 times 7 is the same thing as 7 times 8. I don't know that one, so it must be 56. Now, why I cannot memorize 7 times 8 is 56, I don't know. But to this day, I still go 7 times 8. Oh, it's the one I don't know. It must be 56. So where there is a will, there is a way. So if you are experiencing trouble like this, that's fine, actually. Okay, everybody experiences trouble along the way. You just have to find a way to get around that trouble and to forge ahead anyway. So don't be saying, oh, I can't do this because I can't do this one thing, whatever that thing is. Find a way around that thing, and then the next time you come up with something you're having trouble learning, find a way around that thing as well. There are ways to get around it. If you need help or advice, put a comment in there, below this, and I'll try to get back with you, and maybe we can work this through to find a way that works for you. So you need to go over your multiplication table, your fact, and get rid of, and remember how these work. It would be nice. Some days you think, oh, it would be nice. All right, but no, that was a slip of the tongue. So we're not going to get rid of our multiplication facts. So let's try one and say, okay, what is 4 times 132? Or it could be phrased this way, or the product of 4 and 132. Now, you could put 132 times 4, or you could put 4 times 132. What you do is you line up your ones digit. The previous video talked about ones, tens, hundreds places. So if you've forgotten how that goes, go look at the other video. In general, it is much easier and shorter if you put if you put the shorter number underneath, and it kind of goes like this. So if you have 132 times 4 lined up, you start with a 4 and you multiply straight up. 4 times 2 is 8. Then you multiply a little catty corner over this way. 4 times 3 is 12. Now 12 won't fit into a single digit spot. So you put a 2 here and carry the 1 over there. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 1, this one right here, is 5. So the answer is 528. If you stack it this way, this actually kind of makes my head hurt a little bit, but if this works for you, please do what works for you, not what it works best for me. All right, so you have this lined up and you would go 2 times 4 is 8. Now remember, when you moved over to the next number, you had to skip a spot here. You might have originally put in a 0. Some people just leave it blank. And then you go 3 times 4 is 12. 12 won't fit into this spot, so we put the 2 here, okay? And we carry the 1. And then 1 times 4 is, and then we go, well, that's what we've got. So then we skip another spot, and we're here. 1 times 4 is 5. Plus, I'm sorry, 1 times 4 is 4, plus 1 is 5. This has me so uncomfortable that I'm actually trying to hurry too much to get this through there. All right, so see how long this took to work out? And this one was relatively short, but whatever works for you, okay? I recommend putting the shorter number on the bottom, whether 4 comes first or the 132 comes first, put the 4 on the bottom, the shorter number on the bottom. So what if we want to find the product of 214 and 21? Okay, they might ask it that way. So 21 shorter, I would put 21 under here. So 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times this one here is 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Then we skip a spot. We leave this one blank, or you can put a 0 in, whichever way you were taught. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And we add down 4, 9, 4, 4. Okay? All right. Now, if that left you kind of like not sure about that, replay it again, all right, and see if you can follow along or try it yourself and then replay it. Let's try a little stronger, longer number. So 20,176 times 25. We put the 2,176 down. Here's my 25. Now, we're going to start with the 5 and multiply it from each number. You're going to use the 6, the 7, the 1, the 0, and the 2, moving right to left. So 5 times 6 is 30. We write the 0 down and carry the 3. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 3 is 38. We write the 8 down and carry the 3. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, then we skip a spot. You can either leave it blank or put the 0 right there. 2 times 6. Now, some people leave the 3's there and write up here, and some people don't like that. It's distracting. So if you want to erase it and then kind of start again, you would go 2 times 6 is 12. You put the 2 down, carry the 1. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15, so you write the 5 down and carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 2 is 4. So when you add all this up, you have your 0. 8 plus 2 is 10, carry the 1. 8 plus 1 is 9, plus 5 is 14. Write the 4 down, carry the 1. 1 plus 0 plus 3 is 4. 0 plus 0 is 0. 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is 504,400. Okay? Now, let's try kind of a math problem with a little bit of words in here and see if we are able to translate. So here we go. It costs you $31 for the supplies to build a small shelf unit. You can sell the shelf unit for $65. If you make 23 shelf units and sell them all, what was your total cost to make them? What was the total income? And what was your profit? Now, the cost to make them is at $31 for each shelf, and I built 23. So for each shelf, I spent $31. I'm going to multiply. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Skip a spot. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. So we have 3. 9 plus 2 is 11. Carry the 1. 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay, so my total cost to build these was $713. Now, what's the total income? Then the price I got paid, okay, was $65 for 23 shelves. Okay, so 3 times 5 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 is 19. Skip a spot. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. So if that bugs you with the, it's going to be like, how many ones am I adding? Erase this, all right? And go, let's do this again. 2 times 5 is 10. Write the 0 down. Carry the 1. 2 times 6 is 12. Plus 1 is 13. So 5, 9. 1 plus 3 is 4. 14.95. So your income, the total that you brought in, was $1,495. Now the profit would be how much did you bring in less the costs. Okay, so the profit would be how much did you make, $1,495, but it cost you $713 for supplies. It doesn't even add into your labor. So let's see what's left. So 5 minus 3 is 2. 9 minus 1 is 8. 4 minus 7, well, you can't take 7 away from 4. 4 is too small. So you can either think of this as 14 or carrying over the 1, but 14 minus 7 is 7. So your profit is $782. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit about dividing. So I'm going to go over here. And so let's remember from your multiplication tables that if 6 times 8 is 48, right? Then 48 divided by 6 would be 8, right? And so using, dividing by like a single digit number, that's really kind of a reversal of your multiplication facts. What if it had been 480, okay, divided by 6? Then you would say 480 divided by 6. Now, this is your division symbol right here. There's actually not a clear-cut name for what this is that's accepted by everybody. Okay. The answer that's going to show up here is called your quotient. This number that's underneath here that you're going to divide into, that's your dividend. And the thing that you are dividing by is your divisor. Now, once in a while, people ask you to name these I hate to say fancy, okay, but the mathematical true name. Most people just go, okay, can you divide this out and tell me what the answer is? Right. because you don't always have access to your calculator. Well, you have your phone. Most people have that. But let's practice some math skills here. So 6 won't go into 48, 4, because 4 is too small, so you use 48. Okay, so you're going to use those two digits, and you'll say, all right, what can I multiply 6 by to get as close as possible to 48 without going over like too big? Well, okay, exactly 8. 6 times 8 is 48. You subtract. Okay, well, that went in there with, sometimes they'll call it evenly. Okay, bring down the next column. What do you multiply 6 by to get 0? That would be 0. Okay, what if you have find the quotient, because they'll use find the quotient because that's the answer's name, fancy name that it is. Find the quotient of 1,104 and 4. Now that could be written like in English, the quotient of those two numbers. It could be 1,104 divided by 4. It could be 1,104 over 4, which is to also divide, right? So those all mean to do the same thing. So we're going to take 4 into 1,104. 4 will not go into just this 1 because 1's too small. Will 4 go into 11? Yeah. Okay. Now, 4 times 2 is 8. That's under 11. But 4 times 3 is 12. That's too big. So we're going to use 2 because we don't want to go over. And then you multiply back. 2 times 4 is 8. And then you subtract to see what's left. 11 minus 8 is 3. All right. So then you bring down the next column. What can you multiply 4 by to get 30? Without going over? Well, 4 times 7 is 28. That's under. 4 times 8 is 32. That's too big, so we're going to use this one. So this is 7. 7 times, you multiply back. 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract. You always subtract. So to take 8 away from 0, I borrow 1. So 10 minus 8 is 2, and 2 minus 2 is 0. Bring down the next column. What do you multiply 4 by to get 24? That would be 6. So 6 times 4 is 24. You subtract. And so the answer is 1,104 divided by 4 is 276, or the quotient of those two things is 276. Now, if this was a really important test to you that you had enough time to check your answers, you might want to sit there and go, is it true, looking at these two parts, that if I take 276 times 4, I should get back this 1104. 4 times 6 is 4, carry the 2. 24, carry the 2. 4 times 7 is 28, plus 2 is 30, carry the 3. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So, yep, you can check yourself by multiplying those two back out. What if we have 3205 divided by 5? So we're going to go 3205 divided by 5. All right, what can you multiply 5 by to get 32? Because 3 is too small on its own. And we want to get close as possible to 32 without going over. Well, from your multiplication tables, 5 times 6, multiplying back, is 30. Because 7 would be 35. Okay, 32 minus 30 is 2. Bring down the next column. What can you multiply 5 by to get 20? Well, 4. That would be an exact number. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract to see what's left. But you do have this 5 still there. What can you multiply 5 by to get 5? 1. So 5 times 1 is 5. And when you subtract, there's nothing left over, so it went in there evenly. All right. What if you have 19,230 divided by 6? 6 goes into 19,203. So 6 won't go into 1. 6 goes into 19 3 times because 3 times 6 is 18. And you subtract. 19 minus 18 is 1. Bring down the next column. What do you multiply 6 by to get 12? 2. 2 times 6 is 12. Subtract. And this is 0, okay? But that's these two numbers, right? But I need to bring down the next column, right? So these two are in this section. This one is in this section. So the next column is this 3. Be careful how these line up and be careful that you keep an eye on what's going on. So will 6 go into 3? No. 3 is too small, so it won't go into it by itself. So there's a 0 right here. All right. Bring down the next column. 6 times what is 30? That would be 5. 5 times 6 is 30. Subtract to see what's left. Now, let's see what happens if we had missed that 0 and we just went, okay, it's 325 times 6. If we had skipped the 0. 6 times 5 is 30. Write the 0 down, carry the 3. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 is 15. Write the 5 down, carry 1. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So see, that's not the number we're looking for. 3205 times 5, or 6, beg your pardon. 6 times 5 is 30. Write the 0 down, carry the 3. 6 times 0 is 0, plus 3 is 3. 6 times 2 is 12. Write the 2 down, carry the 1. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So that's 19,230, 19,230. All right, couple more and we're done. All right, let's try something along the lines of 1,000, actually it's 128,688 divided by 21. So you would go 21 goes into 128688. All right, now 21 won't go into 1, 21 won't go into 12. So we're going to try 21 going into 128. All right, well, 21, okay, times 6, we're going to guess, because 6 times 2 is at 12, maybe it'll fit. 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12. If we tried 7, this would be 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 147. This is too big, so this is just under what we're looking for. So that's what we're going to choose. We put the 6 there, right at the end of the number we're trying to build to. 6 times 21, we have the answer right here, is 126. And then we subtract to see what's left. Okay, so that's 2. 8 minus 6 is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. 1 minus 1 is 0. And then we bring down the next column. So we're bringing down the 6. What do you multiply 21 to get as close to 26 without going over? How about 1? 1 times 21 is 21, and you subtract. And 26 minus 21 just leaves you 5. If this number here was bigger than 21, then you would need to use a bigger number for your guess right here in this location. All right, but 5 smaller, so we're doing good. Bring down the next column. We need to multiply 21 by something to get as close to 58 as we can without going over. So 21 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 21 times 3. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. That's too big, so we're going to use this one. So this is 2. 2 times 21 is 42, and we subtract. 8 minus 2 is 6. 5 minus 4 is 1. See how that's just under 21? So we guessed wisely. Okay, bring down the next column. Now, what do you think we can multiply 21 by to get as close as possible to 168? So let's try 8 because 8 times 2 would give me the 16. So what would be 8 times 21? 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 2 is, 168. That's perfect. So this is 8. 8 times 2 is 168. We just did that. Subtract to see what's left. Okay. Now, let's try 34 going into 6086. And so 34 won't go into 6. It would go into 60, all right? So 2 times that would be 68. So we're going to do 1. 1 times 34 is 34. We subtract. All right, 4 won't go away from 0, so we borrow. Put 10 there. 10 minus 4 is 6. 5 minus 3 is 2. Okay, bring down the next column. We want to multiply 34 by something to get as close to 268 as we can. All right, if we tried 6, 6 times 4 is 24, carry the 2. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 2 is 20. Okay, now that seems to be a little small. Let's try 7. See if that's too big. 7 times 4 is 28. Put the 8 down, carry the 2. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 2 is 23. Okay, that's smaller. Okay, 238. 8 minus 8 is 0. 6 minus 3 is 3. 2 minus 2, excuse me, is 0. Bring down the, excuse me. All right, the next column. All right, what do you multiply 34 by to get as close as you can to 306? If you had multiplied 34 by 10, you'd have 340, which is too big. But let's try 9. So 9. And when you multiply this out, you give it a try. Okay, so stop the video and see how you're doing and give it a try. All right, then here we go. 9 times 4 is 36, so you write the 6 down. Carry the 3. 9 times 3 is 27, plus 3 is 30, and this has a remainder of 0. All right, now let's do one more story problem. Okay, and it says you are in charge of buying enough orange juice to make one specialty drink for each of 320 guests. Each drink needs 3 ounces of orange juice. How many ounces total do you need to buy? So I have 320 guests. Each one needs 3 ounces in each drink. Only going to get 1 drink apiece. All right. So 3 times 320. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm going to need to buy 960 ounces. So this is the answer to A. B, if the only available size container at the store holds 20 ounces, how many containers do you need to buy? So to figure out how many I need to buy out of a certain amount, right? Because every time I buy a container, I'm acquiring 20 ounces. I go, how many times will 20 ounces come out of or go into 960 ounces? Okay. So 20 won't go into 9. Okay, 20 going into 96. Let's try 4. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. When you subtract 9, you have 16, which is smaller than 20, so we guessed correctly. So bring down the next column. What do you multiply 20 by to get as close as possible to 160? How about 8? So 8 times 0 is 0. 8 times 2 is 16. You subtract. Okay, so you would have to buy 48 containers. Okay, and the last one says if each container costs $2, how much did you have to spend? So I have to buy 48 containers at $2 each. And sometimes they put parentheses like back to back like this instead of just 48 times 2. Sometimes they'll put both of them in parentheses. Or you can think of it as 48 times $2 each, right? So 48 times 2, 2 times 8 is 16, carry the 1. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, right? So you are going to have to spend $96 to buy and purchase the containers. Now we have not done any division that goes like 4 goes into 255 and said, okay, 4 won't go into 2. 4 goes into 25 maybe 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24, subtract. And this will leave you 1. Bring down the next column. Okay, what you multiply 4 by to get to 15? How about 3? 3 times 4 is 12. You subtract, and we had a leftover of 3. And we haven't talked about that in this lesson because that's in a later lesson when we're talking about decimals. So don't forget, okay, in the description, there's a link to the entire playlist. You can jump around and do whichever ones you want, skip right to the decimal parts. Don't forget to try the problems for practice if you're a little rusty on this. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.